Hello and welcome to Khaleej Times. My name is Rube, and continuing with our podcast on financial planning. This is our third episode, and today we're going to be talking about something that we all deeply care about, which is saving money and making money. See, we all love the sound of it. I love the sound of making money. But then if you think about it, there are two ways to make money today. One is that you either work for yourself or you work for someone else, like you're working in a job or you're an entrepreneur, or then you have the money work for you. Now, if you're wondering how in the world that's going to happen, well, what we've done here at KhaleejTimes.com, we, with the help of the experts, have broken down and simplified all the overwhelming financial planning information and the various aspects of it. The idea here is to educate you, to empower you, to take that first step for creating a more financially secure and happy, future for yourself and your family. Now, before I invite our esteemed expert on the show today, there's something that I quickly want to share with you, that if you're listening to us from anywhere else, all you have to do is please log on to KhaleejTimes.com. You'll find the entire series, all the 10 episodes lined up for you, so you can easily navigate, you can explore, and you can listen up. Also, this series is powered by IG, trade over 16,000 financial markets on one exceptional platform. Now, without further ado, because I've spoken a lot, and I know that all of you are waiting to get started on a very, very important topic, which is start saving, start investing. I have Mr. Toni Huges here. He's actually the senior partner at Finsbury Associates. Toni, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And a very basic question. Easier said than done. How do I start saving?
Good question, actually. So the first thing that you fundamentally have to do is budget. So that's the first thing you must do.
Okay.
So before you even think about anything else, you should put in place a monthly budget, and that is inclusive of everything. So everything from your rent to your pets, if you got them, to your medical insurance, if you pay extra for medical insurance, to life insurance, critical illness insurance, groceries, your kids' activities, if you got them, everything should be included in this budget. And once you've done that, then you've got the platform to start thinking about saving.
Wow. You know what? It completely makes sense, but I think, I'm also a culprit to it, because we always say that, it's approximately this much, but we never really get down to making a proper budget sheet.
Yeah,
right?
That's a scary thing. So, for example, I've sat down with clients before where they've told me, okay, we've gone through their budget and it worked out at 32,000 dirhams, at 25,000 dirhams. And they said, no, we spend 32,000 dirhams. And I've said, but you've only got 25,000 dirhams here. And they said, I'll just put the other 7,000 as other. And what I've said is, no, what you have to do, fundamentally, you have to understand where every single dirham is going.
Absolutely.
Has to be. Because if you don't understand that, how can you start saving? If you don't understand that, how can you start investing? So it's imperative that you understand your budget to the full.
So how do I start implementing a saving plan?
Simple. Again, it depends what you want, really. If you want to start saving for a property purchase, then you say, okay, when do I want to buy that property?
Okay.
Is it in 5 years? Is it in 10 years? Is it in 2 years? And then have a budget towards saving towards that goal.
Okay.
If it's for retirement, okay, how old am I? Am I 30? So when am I going to retire? I want to retire at 65. Okay, I want to retire at 60, and have a goal towards that.
Okay.
You might have kids. Okay. Do you want to send them to university? As we all know, university costs a lot of money. So then you say, okay, my kids 2 or 3, I personally would do it as they were born, because that's what I'm like. But if they're 2 or 3 or 4, okay, when are they going to go to university? Typically at 18. How long is their course for? Typically 4 years, could be 3, could be 5, and then budget towards that and start implementing the saving plan towards that.
Okay, so you mean that, then we need to have a saving plan, and we need to have a saving goal as well.
Massively.
Right. That makes complete sense. All right. My next question, I don't know if an answer exists to this question, really. How do I get to spend less? Because there's always another thing that I want to buy. There's something new in the market. You're always tempted. How do I control myself?
Depends
Tell
again
me.
what you do. Again, budget. It goes back to budget and understand what you spend. So typically, a friend of mine, she sends her husband out. He spends too much on coffee. So Starbucks and all of these places, go down to a coffee shop, okay, I'll buy a coffee. Well, actually, now what she's done is she's bought him a coffee mug to go to work with every day. So that saves a hell of a lot of money just on coffees. For example, in my house, my wife cooks me a lovely meal in the evening, and then what I do is I take the leftovers. Leftovers sounds so horrible, but the rest of it to work the next day. Or I'll have sandwiches or things like that made from home. Because typically, especially here, what we like doing is business lunches and coffees and all of this, and it builds up. So it's all about understanding how you spend less. Spend less can be simple things like using vouchers. Too many of us have credit cards where we've got 2 for 1s or free this or free that, but we don't use them. So typically find out what you have access to and utilize that. For example, I've got 2 kids. We take them to a park, Dubai Parks and Resorts, and this is fantastic because it's an annual pass of $4.95. So what we then do is we go, okay, we're going to take them 20 or 30 times in a year. That saves us money. So think about all those kind of things that you can bulk do or bulk buy, and that will save you money.
So the things that we tend to do on a day-to-day,
Yeah.
in our day-to-day lives, we need to be more mindful about those,
Yeah.
right? And it starts again, from the basics.
Basics.
Starts from the fundamental basics. All right. Okay. So one question is that how much do you think one can afford to save? I mean, it's very subjective, but if you can give me just like...
One can afford or should save. So one can afford depends on their budget. So again, depends on your budget, how much you earn. So how much you earn, then you can look to see how much you can save. One should save a minimum of 20% of their salary every month. I always say pay yourself first, without a shadow of a doubt. So I'll give you an example. I came from the UK. I was paying 45% tax. 45% tax.
Wow.
I've come over here. How much tax am I paying? 0. So what I've done is I normally save 20%. I'm going to add an extra 10% on. And the other 15% that I'm not paying tax for, it's a little bit more expensive to live here than it would be in the UK. So that's why I save a little bit more. But at least you should be saving 20% of your salary all of the time. And that way you'll set yourself up for life.
Okay, so you make a budget for yourself, you pin everything down, and then you should be putting about 20% of what you make into the saving account. And then you should be making these simple fundamental changes in your day-to-day lives if you're serious about saving.
Without a doubt.
And then how do I make sure that I stick to that saving plan?
Budget. Simple. So again, if you look at the 3 aspects of 50, 30, 20 rule, 50% of your budget, of your salary, should go on needs. Not wants, needs. Needs are rent, are groceries, are different things that you have to spend on, whether it's electric, water, all of these things. Those are needs. Wants are your trips out and your dinners and all your niceties, your activities. Those are wants. A lot of people get those mixed up. 30% on needs, 50% on wants, and that's the thing. And then the 20% goes on your savings. So 50, 30, 20. 50% needs, 30% wants, and 20% savings.
So that is a golden rule.
That's a golden rule.
50% needs and 30% wants and 20% should go into your savings account.
All the time.
Wow. The thing is that we don't realize that 20% over a period of time can actually become a reasonable amount of money or a good amount of money. And also, like you said, 50, 30, the rule is 50, 30, 20. So 50% on needs, 30% on wants. So everybody who's cribbing out there, hello, 30%, it's still more than 20%, right? You're still spending 30% on the wants and 20% on the saving.
So your new things that are coming out, you still can buy them. Because they're coming out. But pay yourself first. Pay yourself first, you will always get there at the end. If you pay yourself last, that 20% will be rolled into the 30% of wants.
Absolutely.
And that would be 50% needs, 50% wants. Don't have
then,
any money to spend.
The truth is there is no end to somebody's wants. We would always want to have more, right? So we need to kind of put a limit to it.
100%.
Toni, I want to actually bring that certain example in our conversation because I was just having a conversation with Toni, and you quoted the example of the coffee that we have on an everyday basis. We just walk into a cafe, enjoy the whole experience. You know, and
so basically, one of my colleagues at work,
Yeah.
she said to her husband, "Stop going into the coffee shop because he spends fortunes on the coffee shop every day.
Okay.
And so she's bought him a coffee mug and a coffee machine at home.
Yeah.
Costs maybe a fifth of the price, and then literally
Wow.
every morning he makes himself a coffee and off he goes to work, saving a hell of a lot of money. But what we do is we go for the easiness. We like the aroma. We like going into the coffee shop and saying, oh, this is a good experience. It might be a good experience, but if you're looking to save money, sometimes coffee can taste near on the same if you make it at home than if you go to a coffee shop as well.
a little bit of laziness and convenience, and of course, you know, the whole experience of it. I know it takes over, but then if you're serious about saving, then you got to start making these small changes on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
Yeah, and then see the results over a period of time,
Exactly.
which Toni has said is going to be fantastic. All right, okay. All right, so we've spoken about creating a budget. We've spoken about how we can implement a plan and we can stick to it, and how we can, you know, start making these small little changes, which is very, very important. And the 50-30-20 rule that you've just spoken
Massively.
about. I also want to know that, should we have an emergency savings fund?
Without a doubt. Emergency savings funds is imperative. So what you should have is 3 to 6 months of emergency money. And what I mean by that is in the bank doing nothing, unfortunately, but doing nothing, sat there just in case an emergency comes up. So an emergency can be you could lose your job. So then what you're going to do for the next 3 to 6 months, you need to be able to live off something, especially if you're the only breadwinner in the family.
Yeah.
Very, very important that you have that emergency savings in there. So typically what I like to say to my clients, 3 to 6 months of what you spend every month. So if you spend 15,000 dirhams every month, you should have 3 times 15,000, 45,000 dirhams in there. If you spend and want 6 months and 90,000 dirhams in there. I don't like that much money in there because it's doing nothing, but it's an emergency fund, should never be touched in case of emergency. And I should say that emergency is not going on a holiday to Maldives. Emergency, if you lose your job or something pops up that's unexpected, car breaks down, things like that you need to spend money on.
And of course, basic question, do I need to save on a regular basis?
Yes, as an example. So from where I'm from the UK, we have a pension saving plan. So in there, we normally, whichever company you work for, they'll pay a bit and you'll pay a bit into a pension pot, and it was there until you're 65 or 66 now, and then you'll have a retirement plan. Whereas here you don't have that. You have gratuity, but gratuity, let's not kid ourselves, won't give you retirement. So did you know that if you worked, you're going to have to work 26 years for one company. 26 years for one company.
26 years
for
basically
one company,
your whole career.
and that will give you the maximum amount of gratuity, which is 2 years of your basic salary.
Wow.
And that still will not be enough to fund your retirement.
Wow.
So always, when people say, should I save on a monthly basis? Yes. Without a shadow of a doubt, 20% every month, no matter what. Forget that money and put it like it's a bill. Tax yourself. That's a really good way of looking at it. And I say to my clients, tax yourself. So you're not getting taxed here. Tax yourself 20%. If you tax yourself 20%, then you don't think you're getting that money back. And that's gone to your retirement plan, gone to your kids' savings, gone to your property savings, and that will help build your wealth up.
You know, as brutal as it sounds, you know, to tax yourself for 20%, but you know, again, this is something really, really important. It's a very important,
Well, if it's back in the UK, 45%.
45%. Oh, that is insane. Okay.
I've got clients in Sweden, 55%.
What? Okay, you know, I'm very happy I'm living in the UAE, where you don't pay any taxes and it's all good. Okay, all right. Before I go to my next question, I also, because it's so important, because we all have credit cards, we all use credit cards, and sometimes we don't use with as much mindfulness that we should be. And I was just talking to Toni, and he said something really, really interesting, which I think is worth sharing with our audiences.
So credit cards are really important.
Yeah.
One, they help our credit rating at the banks, but also they're very important because typically, for example, if you earn 20,000 dirhams, what's your credit limit? Is it 20,000 dirhams? Is it 10,000 dirhams? Is it 5,000 dirhams? Typically, it's twice.
It's twice, exactly.
Your salary.
Thrice,
or it could be 3 times. So imagine that. So I'm getting paid 20,000 dirhams and the bank's given me a 40,000 dirham limit to my credit card. How does that work? If you spend 40,000 dirhams of that credit card, how can you pay it back if you only earn 20,000 dirhams? Absolutely. So my advice, and the really important advice, is never ever take out the length of what you get. So if you get a basic salary of a whole salary of 20,000 dirhams or whatever it is, don't have a 20,000 limit credit card. At best, you should have 30%. Some people can get away with 50% if they will pay it back. But please don't have any more than 50% because you have more than 50% of that credit card, it will eat you up and start getting you into debt. Yeah. And the thing is, and I know what you're going to say here, the thing is, the reason being is the minimal payment is what everybody loves doing. So what they would do is go, my bill's 40,000, but the bank has told me it's only 4,000 dirhams.
Exactly.
And it's mad because what you would do is psychologically you'll go, well, I don't want, even if you've got 50,000 dirhams in the bank, I don't want to pay the bank 40,000 dirhams. It's my money.
Yeah.
I'll pay them 4,000 dirhams. And what that does is that will get you, well, it'll get you the interest payment. But guess what? The interest payment's only 2.99%. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. But it does.
Yes.
Because if you don't pay it, and if you only pay a minimal payment, then over a year, that 2.99% will compound up and become 42%.
Wow. Wow. See, these are the things which I think, we become, we become very, very oblivious to. And I think these are the things that one needs to be aware of and informed about or educated about. We need to be kind of,
This is not me poo-pooing credit cards. I've got a credit card. They're fantastic things if they're used correctly. Use credit cards correctly and they will be your savior. They're fantastic things to use. But don't get a limit that's twice your salary. So or like even the same as your salary.
Only 30%.
30% is enough. What do you need more than that? And do you know what most people tell me? Just in case of emergencies. And that's the thing, just in case of emergencies.
Then have an emergency fund, right?
Exactly. That's the whole point.
In case of an emergency, you need to have an emergency fund. And again, cap your credit cards to a 30%, right? Okay, perfect. So my next question is very interesting question. Of course, it's very subjective again, like I said, but how much investment risk do you think one should take?
Depends. Sorry, a lot of the things. Of course it depends. If you're 20, then you've got a horizon of possibly 45 years. So you're 65, 66. If you're 50, you've only got 15 years. If you're 60, you've only got 5 years. So that massively matters. So it depends on your age because that will help see what risk tolerance you should have. Also your capacity to loss. So if I'm dealing with one of my clients who've got 10 million in the bank, say, and they say, here, Tony, here's $1,000 to invest. Typically, it doesn't really matter to them if that has a little bit up and down and it goes a bit haywire because they can capacity loss. It's not so much. If I've got somebody who's got $5,000 and they give me $1,000, they don't want to lose that $1,000 because that's really important to them. So it's so important to understand each different person. So when people start saying, oh, well, it's the same for everybody, it's not. It depends on person to person. You're different, I'm different, everybody's different. So it depends on your age, what you're planning for, and where you are in your plan to get there.
Absolutely, and of course, your income, right? Which is like a starting point. For financial planning or for everything.
And, your budget is the starting point and the income. So budget and income then gives you a surplus. Surplus then enables you to say, how much money have I got left to do what I need to do with it?
Perfect. We all worry about retirement, right? I mean, I've heard so many people, especially, today in this day and age, I've seen so many people who want to retire early, right? But if you want to retire early, say at the age of 40, you need to have that many funds in your bank account.
If you want to retire early, simple. Don't save 20%, save 50%. It's as simple as that. I get a lot of clients who go, I want to retire early. Well, okay, we'll save more money and invest more and understand that what it takes to retire early. And also, what is retirement? I like to say financial security because if you're financially secure, then you can retire or you can just do a little bit of consultation, these kind of things. But retirement is so important that most people forget this fundamentals of 20%, 20%, 20%. And that's where they lose out.
But then how much money do you think, or what one should plan towards retirement?
£1 trillion. It's quite simple.
Yeah.
What you have to do, and a lot of people don't think about this,
Yeah.
is you have to decide where you're actually going to retire. So, for example, I want to retire to Canada.
Hawaii.
No, I'd love to retire to Canada. Yeah. So again, I understand Canada's actually a lot cheaper than here, a lot cheaper than the UK. So it'll be, this is what I'd need to retire there. I've got a client who's retired to Ethiopia. It's one of the cheapest places to live. He can live like a king there. Yeah. The same with parts of Asia. Again, really, really cheap. So what you have to take into consideration is where you're going to retire. If you're going to retire to New York City, oh my God, you're going to need a lot of money. Yeah. Same with California, these kind of places. So if you're going to retire to one big city, you have to understand it's going to cost you a lot of money. So again, I know I don't want to say and keep going, oh, it depends, but it literally does depend on what you do. Also, what you should always do is see what you're earning now. And typically between 20 to 35% is what you should be earning of that in retirement.
Okay.
So that's where you should look. Okay. So again, if you're earning 10,000 dirhams, then 3,000 dirhams in retirement should be sufficient.
Okay.
If you've chosen a country where it's not overly expensive. Okay. If it's a New York City or California or somewhere like that,
I think even 10,000 is going to be
exactly. It's going to be a lot more. So those are the kind of things that you need to look at.
How much money you think that one should be keeping for investments? Now, this is really interesting because you said that 20% goes into the saving account, and one should be pulling out that 20% of the money that goes into the saving account and invest that.
Well, yes, yes. Okay. So when I mean savings account, I mean investing. 20%. Let's be completely honest. If you put it in a bank, 20% is not going to. You're not going to get any kind of interest on that at all. It has to be invested because if it's not, what you'll see is inflation taking over. So depending what part of the world you're in, inflation can be anything from 1.5% to, in some places, is 11, 12%.
Yeah.
So again, you have to realistically understand that if you're not investing that money, it's eroding against time. So massively important. Understand inflation, because if you don't understand inflation, then that will trip you up down the line.
So the thing is that, money lying idle actually makes no sense. It's an opportunity loss. So investing.
Yeah. Wherever you do. And a lot of people don't like investing because they're worried. Yeah. But again, you have to look at the time span. So if you're investing, a lot of people are, oh my God, I'm worried. You won't lose money unless you crystallize that loss. What I mean by that, because a lot of people don't know what I mean by crystallizing, is simple terms. I'll take a house, for example. Yeah. If you buy a house for $100,000 and next year it's only worth $50,000, would you sell that house?
I would be tempted to, but I know that the answer is no. You should
definitely
wait.
Not. Yeah. And the reason being is if you sell that, you crystallize that loss. Yeah. What that means is you take that loss and say, thank you very much. I know I've put 100,000 in, but I'm only going to take 50,000 out. And what happened in the crash, and which is a lot of reason people were scared of the stock market, is everything went down and everybody pushed the sell button. Sell, because they were scared. Typically, in an investment market, in a bear market, it only lasts around 18 months.
Wow.
So if you're only 30 or 40, then you've got a long time, a hell of a long time before that actually comes through and you can lift up again into the bull market. Yeah. So don't worry so much about investing into the markets. You should do. Yeah. And investing doesn't have to be into the stock markets. It can be national bonds. It can be property or anything else you can find in businesses, all these different kind of things. But the most important thing that I can always say is don't leave it idle in banks.
So my next question to you is that how do you think that one can gain the confidence to invest? I mean, do you think the right way to do is that you should read about it, learn about it, and then you can do it yourself? Or you think, you can approach a wealth manager, a financial expert, and you can seek help from them? What is the right way to kind of get started?
Both are right ways. So firstly, teach yourself.
Yeah.
And in anything in life, no matter the expert, always teach yourself. Because if you teach yourself, you know the basics, and that's really important. My obviously advice would be sit down with a financial professional.
Yeah.
And a story that I always tell people is I had a lovely lady who came to me and said, Tony, I don't have very much money. I can't afford to invest very much. I know you typically use a high net worth clients. And I said, look, I don't. All I look after is people that are serious about reaching their goals. And if you're serious about reaching their goals, then I can help you. I did help her. We started saving as little as 1,850 dirhams a month. And that's it. And then 7 years later, she's got married. She's obviously got promoted a couple of times. As her husband, they've put some money in. So she's got $200,000, not dirhams, $200,000 in her pot, because obviously she's put more money in. And we've had some really good growth in that. She's gone back to the UK. She's rang me up, said, Tony, I need to take 50,000 for my first property. She took $50,000 out for her first property, and fantastic. Wow. So what I always say to people, it doesn't matter whether you're starting at the smallest amount or the highest amount. What it matters is that you're serious about.
You're serious about it. You're consistently doing it.
Exactly.
And remember, everything starts with that one buck, right? With
exactly.
that one dirham that you need to put. It's just that we need to get, like you said, we need to get serious about saving.
Yeah.
And equally serious about start investing. It's never too late, but then the sooner you start, the better it is.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And the reason is compounding interest.
Massively important.
Yes. Yeah. So can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Compounding interest, I love talking about. So I do a lot of work with schools, and when I throw that out to them, they first look at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. By the end of it, they're like, yes, I want to do that. So take this, and this is what I say to my school students. If you're at 20 years old and you put 59 dirhams away every day until you're 65, how much money would you have? I told you the answer, you can't answer.
Okay.
$1 million. $1 million.
Wow.
At 5% growth.
Wow.
Compound interest. What compound interest simply means is that, say you get your interest, so 5% interest, you got that, you add that to the 59 dirhams, and then that gets added, and that 5% of that figure.
Exactly.
So it keeps on compounding up and up. A lot of people think, it's 12, simple maths, 12 times 5 or whatever. It's not. It's actually compounding up. Every time you add a bit of interest, you compound that up. Add a bit of interest, you compound that whole amount up. And that's what makes a hell of a lot of difference.
Absolutely. The first time I heard about compound interest, and trust me, I was quite blown away. What are the things we should be looking at, and where we should be investing our money?
Okay. So typically it depends again, but anything from passive funds, which are like ETFs that track the markets, which are really, really easy. Again, if you're not a sophisticated investor, that's easy to do. Pin onto the S&P 500 or the FTSE or any of those. So those are quite good to do. National bonds, property, anything, stock market. Basically diversification. So look at all of the streams that you can have and look at a diverse portfolio. If you have a diverse portfolio, then you'll typically win.
We're all scared to invest. Why? Because we fear of losing, there's this fear of losing money, that everything is going to may become zero, right? One important question. How can we do away with this fear and really start investing? And also, who should we trust?
Well, the fear is real, because again, people do lose money. And as to it going all away, it should never, ever go all away. The only way it can go all away is if you have an unregulated product. So please make sure any product you ever invest in is regulated. There are a lot of unregulated products out there that if you go into, typically you will get nothing back. And there's been a lot over here as well, so it's really important. As to who you should trust, it's very, very simple. So make sure, if you employ one of wealth managers, then make sure that one, they have the qualifications. So at our company, Finsbury Associates, we won't even allow you to interview unless you're qualified. Massively important. And then we do certain moral tests as well, and make sure that we actually interview all of our wealth managers first. And then make sure the firm is regulated as well within that country to do business. So if you've got those two things pinned off, then that's massively important. And the third thing, and again, a really important one, is testimonials. It's so easy to get testimonials.
Yes.
One, they should have a LinkedIn page, and two, they should have testimonials. I've even gone a step further, and I've got what I call a panel of advocates. That means if you wanted to check on my testimonials, I could give you 2 or 3 people in my client base. You could ring them up and ask them how good I am. Every financial advisor worth their salt has to have these things in place. And that way, it's an easy way to checklist that and see if you can trust them or not.
Thank you so much, Toni. It was so wonderful to speak with you because, and trust me, I have gained so much out of this conversation. I'm sure that everybody who's listening to us and watching us, probably would have had the same experience as I've had, listening to you. But anything else that you want to say before we wrap up this episode?
One thing that we didn't cover today, really important, protection. So all of these, budget and all of that, it's fantastic, but protect your money. And one of the easiest ways to protect your money is to make sure that, for example, if you're the breadwinner, or even if you've got your wife or your husband at home, you should have critical illness in cover. Because imagine you lose your job tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, so you get a critical illness and you can't actually earn any money. What happens? How do you actually pay yourself 20%? How do you pay all your bills? So critical illness cover pays out a lump sum of money to cover in things like this. So for example, I've got $500,000 worth of cover if I was to get a critical illness. There's about 35 of them, Parkinson's disease, cancer, loss of limb, all of these. So if something happened like that to me tomorrow, I would be able to secure my family for a period of time because I've got a lump sum payment. So that's really important. But budget, understand debt, make sure you use compound interest, and make sure you protect yourself, and make sure you speak to somebody who's regulated.
Thank you so much, Toni. It was wonderful speaking with you, and thank you so much for listening to us. I hope that you've enjoyed and you've taken away some very, very key points to make sure that you have a financially secure future. And do not forget to keep tuning to KhaleejTimes.com for all the other news and updates. And also, if you want to listen to our entire podcast series, we have lined up 10 episodes on various topics regarding financial planning. So log on to KhaleejTimes.com and you can explore and you can listen to that. And also, thank you so much, IG, for powering this episode, which is Start Saving, Start Investing. Thank you very much, and keep tuning to KhaleejTimes.com.